For what are men better than sheep or goats that nourish a blind life within the brain, if knowing God they lift not hands in prayer? For so in every way is this earth bound by gold chains about the feet of God. Tennyson.
Kumbaya, my Lord, Kumbaya. Kumbaya, my Lord, Kumbaya. Kumbaya, my Lord.
Well, I was born in Indiana, but I left there when I was 6 weeks old, so I don't have much of a recollection of Indiana. And I spent a couple of years in Canada, and I eventually just got rooted in Buffalo and raised 7 kids here in Kenmore. Now they're scattered all over the country. I've got a son in Arizona, and I've got a daughter in Rochester, and another one up in Trenton, and so life goes on. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a minister. I wanted to grow up and be a minister. And by the time I got to high school, I realized I wouldn't cut it. So I looked around, and I've done a lot of things. I've been a newspaper reporter, and I was a supervisor at General Motors. That's where I retired from, out there, River Road. But I've always liked people. I had a point several years ago where I had a sort of a midlife crisis, and I thought, who can I talk to? I'll talk to my minister at Unity Church. My mother used to come to Unity Church, but we grew up in the Episcopal Church, or the Anglican Communion they called it, but this was our church. And so I came down here and I talked to Allaurah, who was Sue then, and I cried on her shoulder for over an hour. Just everything is wrong and so on. When I got all through, she said, what you need is the Course of Miracles. They meet downstairs every Tuesday at 5:30, and she kicked me out.
He came to see me, and I think I don't remember exactly what the issue was, but the more he talked, the more I could see that it was all about forgiveness, that's what would take care of this issue. And so I said, well, you might benefit from exploring a Course in Miracles group. And they meet on Tuesday evening. And I think, why don't you give that a try? I think that would, maybe take care of your issues here.
I always had this feeling about karma. And when things happened to me, somehow or other, I attracted it to me. And people laughed at me when I said that. But that's a basic teaching in the Course. It resonated, that's all. When Allaurah says, they meet every Tuesday, go down there, you've got to give a thing a chance. So I didn't come in and reject it. I didn't come in and accept it.
So he did, and he just was so dedicated to that group. He never missed a meeting.
The Course says karma doesn't come to bind you, it comes to free you. So, and I like that.
Yeah, I had a lot of feelings about the Course. I found it when I went to ministerial school. Everybody was talking about the Course in Miracles, and so I bought the books, and I started working with the workbook lessons, and there wasn't a discussion group there at the school, and I didn't understand it. I really did not understand. The language of it was very difficult for me.
I've often said that there's a lot in the book that I don't understand, but there's nothing in the book that I disagree with.
One day I just threw the book. I said, I'm done with this.
One of the things that I think that I have really learned is you cannot go through life saying, if someone had only told me. There are a lot of things in this world that you're not really meant to know. You're meant to act out of compassion, not out of understanding.
And then, of course, I picked it up again and I tried to understand it. And the thing is, you don't have to understand it.
It's taught me that I don't have to know everything about somebody before I can help them. Well, that's kind of unusual. Well, you need help. Well, let me know about this. Let me know what happened, you know. Just you do what you see to do at the time right there.
You just do what it says. It took me a long time to figure that out. And I finally, recently, you know, like in the last 3 years, I've really begun to work with it. And I love it.
I have had a few psychic experiences, enough to tell me that there is another world out there. Sometimes we'll get something in a class here, and 3 weeks later something will occur, and I'll say, oh, aha, it's an aha
That's
moment.
what it means.
That's what that line meant. So like there's the hand of God saying, now you can see, huh? You know? That kind of psychic touch to it I like very much. I was a kid in grade school, first grade, and I had a young sister and her friend, both 4 years old, came up. This was in Toronto. They came up to meet me after school, and I had been held after school for misbehavior. They waited out across the street thinking they were on the wrong side of the street, and both of them were run over and killed by a streetcar. 2 of them. It was a terrible action. And I carried the guilt of that for years. I mean, go forward a half a century, and we had a presentation here one time, and Mary handed me a little plaque, that Reverend Mary, that had my name on it, Man of the Year or something. I think it was the first one you handed out.
Yeah,
And I looked at it, and I said, oh, she said, is something wrong? I said, well, it says Joan on here, and that's my sister's. And with that, I felt her arm around me. And she said, John, it's all right. It wasn't your fault. And I felt like someone had taken a 10-ton boulder off him. And it taught me that we carry a lot of baggage in our subconscious and don't even know it's there. Life is not without its challenge. The Course says this. You were not born to be without challenges. You were born to overcome them. I have a little thing that I carry in my wallet. This is from the Course. I am responsible for what I see. I choose the feelings I experience, and I decide upon the goal that I would achieve. And everything that seems to happen to me, I ask for, and I receive as I have asked. So I have had some weird experiences. And I always say, somewhere or another, I ask for this. I have learned to ask for understanding when I get into a situation like that. A little silent prayer. Where is the lesson here, Lord? Where is the lesson? And I nearly always get an immediate answer. Sometimes I'll come in and say, that haunts me, so I'm going to go back over it again for the benefit of the group. No one's ever complained. I just say, this is what I'd like to do. Normally, we'll work in a workbook, and a section at a time, and everybody around the table reads a paragraph. Then we go back and start over and parse out each paragraph. What did this say to you? What did this? Because sometimes a question raised in the first paragraph will be answered in the second or third. So we like to read a section at a time, and then go back. And I can cheerfully admit I've had a lot of people explain stuff to me that we've read that I didn't understand. It fell to me. I inherited it. I didn't go seeking it. And I've had no problem at all if someone else wants to come along and say, get out of the way, old man, now you've had your 90th birthday, party's over, we'll get some fresh blood in here. The older I get, the more I realize that sort of the less I know. I knew everything when I was 21.
Yeah.
And now that I'm almost 91, I know nothing about everything. And back then I knew everything about nothing. You know? My dad used to say, better to be quiet and thought a fool than open your mouth and remove all doubt. I've only missed one Tuesday, I think, in 25 years, only missed one Tuesday.
This is your lifeline.
This is, yeah. And I've had times, I've only had one time when nobody showed up. And I've had one time when I couldn't show up. And some of the best times that I've had, and I've realized afterwards it was probably meant to be, was when only one person shows up and we can talk for an hour. And I realized that they've got problems. And they were able to talk it out.
Well, I think he started coming to church on a regular basis sometime in the 80s. And he was our handyman for a long time. And he, you know, there are a lot of things that can break around here. And he was Mr. Fix-It.
I would say John was kind of a mentor. I was going to say that I met John when we were both slaves in the Roman Empire, and we helped build the Colosseum, you know, and that's where we learned, you know, the construction angle of things.
That was his tithe. He tithed his time. And we so appreciated him because he would just come, you know, just like that, right away.
John is a man of action of many other things. I would say he's certainly as a man of action and practicality. Yeah, when I met him here at Unity, probably late 90s, early 2000s is when I became aware of who actually went here and such like that. One of the things, of course, that was really kind of bonding was the building of the gazebo, which we started somewhere around, well, 2002, I would say, 2002, 2003, and that lasted for about 4 or 5 years. And he was a regular contributor to that. He helped paint and cut boards, and together with others, we built a gazebo, and it was great fun, and it was quite an accomplishment.
I remember that you taught me that was so important about the importance of sacraments. I remember when I came, whenever we would lock up the church together, you would say how important it was to leave the light on for that dove in the sanctuary, because it was an outward symbol
Of an inward grace.
of an inward grace.
I think that's one definition of a communion I heard one time. Was an outward and physical sign of an inward and spiritual grace.
Yeah.
Thank you for being such a great guy. Thank you for extending your kindness and your wisdom and your sense of humor and your friendship to me.
John, thank you. Thank you so much. I just, those are the words. Thank you.
Don't ask him about the deacon who misplaced his hat. It's very funny, but it's not for everyone.
The title of the book is baffling to people. A Course in Miracles. What is a miracle? And the Course will tell you that a miracle is an act of love. And that there is no order of difficulty, which means there's no such thing as a big miracle or a little miracle. You can help a little old lady cross the street with her groceries, or you can stop a war. They're both miracles. And one isn't bigger than the other. So that tells me sometimes when you do a little thing for somebody, it's an act of love. And that's what I think of. If I think that something makes no contribution at all, except to ease somebody's pain, like put a Band-Aid on a cut, it's still an act of love because it's a miracle. And we don't really know in our American way of life how to use the word miracle. Not really. It's miraculous, you know. Dandelion wine out of dandelions, it's miraculous. Dearly beloved, I've lived long enough that I should have learned something.
never fade. For a heart beating with joy, for all that's real, for all we feel.